If you'd like to learn how to paint this really bright, vibrant orange lily, then stick around, I'm going to show you how. I've done a simple outline here to start with, and I provide you with a free traceable just like this so that you can trace this down yourself, and I'll tell you later on in this video how you can obtain it. I've swatched out the colours that I'm using here. These are from Deep Light, and I'll talk to you a little bit later on in this tutorial about the colours that I'm using and how you can have access to the free reference photograph. All the brushes I'm using today are from my own collaboration with Craftamo, but you can use whatever materials you want to, and I will link everything that I'm using today in the description box underneath this video so that you can check them out for yourself. I start by mixing a really watery mix of a yellow colour. In this instance, I'm using Mirabella from Deep Light. Once I've applied it, I clean my brush, pat it dry, and then notice how I'm blending it into the paper to get a really soft edge. I'm applying this yellow tone where I can see the yellow tone shining through the beautiful orange flower. I'm just applying this yellow tone here and there. With a watered down version of orange, I'm taking it around the stamen and anther in the middle, just like this. Now this particular photograph is rather special. This photograph was provided by one of my viewers called Chris. A little while ago over on our private Facebook group, we launched a competition whereby the winners would have their lovely paintings made into a tutorial, and Chris was one of our winners. So congratulations, Chris, and thank you for letting us use your stunning photograph. Notice how I'm applying the orange colour and letting it bleed naturally into that paler colour that I applied just now, letting the watercolour do its work. The paper that I'm using today is a rough surface, which I really enjoy because I think it helps with the blending process and it gives your watercolour painting a little bit of vibrancy. I'm using the yellow tone at the base here to work around the stamen and anther using my number 8 brush. Now, at the time of filming this video, I had a little bit of an announcement from Craftamo. We launched these brushes back in 2023 as a limited edition, and they did sell out. And I've just been told that we are going to be doing a second run. So if anybody's interested in purchasing these brushes, you can head over to Craftamo and click the notification button, and you'll be notified when we are ready to launch our second set. So many of you have really enjoyed using them, and I'm delighted that we are able to reoffer them for a second time. So do head over to Craftamo, and I will link it in the description box underneath. This is a colour called Rosehip, as I said, from Deep Light. Now these colours are from Ray's Botanical Palette, which I did. I collaborated with Deep Light a little while ago to put together a curated set that I absolutely adore. They're my favourite colours from the brand, and you can use whatever colours you want to, but if you did want to treat yourself, head over to Deep Light, who are a Latvian company. They are a small brand and hand make these stunning paints. They're very special, and I do have a discount code, Deep Ray, which you can use for any colours from Deep Light, so do take advantage of that. So I'm using the orange colour, which is Rosehip, noticing how I'm putting it on the base of this petal, cleaning my brush and adding a little bit of a yellow tone to the top part. You can see from the photograph that it's a lighter colour at the top, so we want to take advantage of this and let these colours bleed together, making the most of how watercolour reacts to the paper there. You want to keep your lighter areas as light as you can, and you don't want to lose them at this point. So watercolour is all about building up your colours from light to dark, making sure that each layer is dry before applying the next. That way your painting won't look overworked. Now we do provide you with a free tutorial every week here on YouTube. So if this is something that appeals to you, you may want to consider subscribing to my channel and hitting that little bell notification so that you'll be notified every time I upload and you won't miss new content. I do have a particular way of blending my watercolours and applying them, and I have a video on your screen now that shows you in a little bit more detail. So if I'm going too fast for you, or you want to take a little bit more, you want to check that out, then do take a look. I'm applying the, this is Rosehip from my set. You can use any colours that you want to, by the way. If you have any orange colour within your kit, then go ahead. I'm a great advocate of using what you have, but if you did want to check out these paints, like I said, I will link them in the description box. So any orange colour that you have, for just applying it straight onto the paper, wet on dry. So if you are enjoying this video, could I ask you to hit that like button below, and it's just a way of letting YouTube know that you're enjoying my content. It means that more people get to see it and my channel will grow, and I'd really appreciate your support. Notice how I'm flicking between the yellow colour and the orange. It's a lighter consistency here, which means it's got a little bit more water. Letting that paint bleed into the existing wash, you've got that beautiful graduated tone. I'm applying this watered down version on the curve of this little petal here and just adding a darker value to the outside edge. Cleaning my brush in the puddle, wiping it dry, and then using that damp brush to blend it out. If you're new here and you're wondering why I've got a little puddle of water in the middle of my ceramic palette, it just means that I'm not flooding the brush with water, and it means that I don't get too much water on my paper. So as you can see, once again, going on the top outside edge of this particular petal, there's a big highlight in the middle of this one, so I don't want to take it too far down. We want to retain that lighter area, so I'm just applying this with my number 8 brush to the top and dropping in a tiny bit of pigment, as you can see me doing here. This number 8 brush is really great for bigger washes as well as smaller ones because it's got a lovely fine point. I'm leaving an area in the middle there where that highlight is because we want to retain that, and just applying the little bit of a darker value on the base there. Make sure that each adjoining petal is dry before doing this, otherwise that paint is going to bleed into the wet paint. So just make sure that you skip a petal, add a petal, and so on and so forth, as I'm doing here in this tutorial. Stay right until the end of this video because I will put the reference photograph that you can see on screen that Chris has very kindly let us use. I'll put that right at the end, as well as the simple outline that you saw me, that you're seeing me paint on right here. So that will go right at the end of the video so that you can have access to that. You can pause the screen, you can pause the video, screenshot it, and then you can print it out that way, or if you want to draw it freehand, you are of course welcome to do that too. I'm using my blender brush from my set from Crafter Mode to blend these colours together. As watercolour dries, it does have a little bit of a hard edge. It's not a major problem, but it's something that bothers me, so I like to just blur it out using that blender brush, as you can see me doing here. I'm just using it damp just to merge those colours together. Now everything's completely dry, and I'm using another mix of, this is Rosehip, as well as the gorgeous Mayan, and to that I'm adding a little bit of Reed Buff. You can see how I'm mixing these colours up here. Just a little bit of the red, a little bit of the yellow, and a little bit of Reed Buff, which is a nice creamy colour. It just gives it a little bit of opacity. Bit more Mayan going in. I want to make the colours a little bit different as we work through. So this first layer is dry, so you can see how I'm applying a mixture there of Rosehip with a tiny bit of Mayan added in, but we don't want to take it all over that first wash. It's important that we keep some of the elements untouched, and I'm using my number 4 brush here because it's got a super fine point which gets into all the little nooks and crannies, allowing me to get the paint wherever I want to put it. Cleaning my brush and using that blending method that I talked about earlier, and the method that I use in all of my tutorials. This brush has a very fine point and is great for finer detail. You can see how I'm blending that colour into the existing yellow paint, and this makes it look really natural, because in nature we have these underlying colours, and I just think it gives it a nice look to see that beautiful yellow tone shining through. As I said at the start of this video, you can use whichever colours that you want to, but if you were lucky enough to snag yourself a set of these gorgeous paints, then I know that many of you have bought them, so you'll be wanting to know how I use them. This is Mayan along with a little bit of that stunning Rosehip mixed together, and again, I'm not taking this colour everywhere, I'm just applying it here and there over the existing wash, which is now dry, and working around the stamen and filaments, as you can see me doing here. Cleaning my brush and blending it into that existing dry wash. Working carefully around the stamen and anther, and again just blending that colour in. You can see how easily the colours merge together. I think the rough surface paper is really good for this kind of blending. Somebody asked me the other day whether I enjoy using a hot press paper, which is the kind of smooth, it has a smooth surface, and traditionally botanical artists love using it, but I've never been a fan of it. I use it from time to time, but I sort of fell in love with this rougher surface paper by accident. I bought the wrong one, but I really like it. So adding here the mixture of, this is Rosehip, Mayan and Rebuff. It's like it's a kind of peachy, opaque colour. This works really well, as you can see me applying it here, with dropping a tiny bit more of that darker value, which is Mayan, along with Rosehip. I really like adding colours like Rebuff to my mixes, because sometimes that opacity really works well. And just blending it into the paper with my number 4 brush. You can see the colours that I'm picking up from my palette there, adding a tiny bit of water because it had dried up on my palette, and just taking it down the outside edge here. And again, we're adding the mix of Mayan and Rosehip. Just look at how vibrant those colours are. I really love them. They're so bold, and just blending in as usual. Once again, the paint is dry, so I'm going over with the second layer now, going over the initial wash that I put in place. So all the guesswork is out, and I'm just working around that highlight. It's really important that you retain that central highlight to make it look as though the light is reflecting from that petal. You can see how I'm using that damp brush to just merge that colour into the highlight to make it look soft and natural and give a really soft outside edge, or inside edge in this case. Going back to the Mayan mix, which is Mayan and Rosehip, and going over that initial wash there, blending it into the existing wash as I would normally do. Continuing to build up the colour and using my number 8 brush just to gently merge them together so that they look nicely blended. Dropping in a little bit more of that Mayan mix. If you want to join in with this tutorial and you're having difficulty matching the colours because you don't have this set, then please let me know in the comments what colour that you have, and I will tell you which colours to use if you're stuck. I want everybody to be able to join in with these tutorials. You don't have to go out and buy the colours that I'm using. I'm a great advocate of using what you have in your own set. So we're back to these colours now. We're going to mix a bit of green. This is green woodpecker with the Mirabella. This is for the stem. So I'm using the watered down version of Mirabella just to go over this section here and at the top of the stem, and dropping in a little bit of green woodpecker and taking it down the, dropping in a little bit of that green woodpecker and taking it down the outside edge. Taking it down the stem. It's a little bit watery. You can see it's puddling a little bit there, but I just take this down the stem, just adding a bit more pigment to the mix there. This is a gorgeous yellowy green tone. I really, really love it. Carry on down the stem, working carefully around the petals. Make sure that that petal is dry before you do this, because you don't want the orange tone on that leaf, on that petal, to go into the stem. Make sure that everything's dry before you do this. Otherwise it will just blur into that existing green wash, which we don't want. So just be careful and take your time. As you come down the stem, just take your time, taking the tip of your brush to that pencil line. Clean your brush, pat it dry, and then just use that damp brush to blur that outside edge, and repeat that until you've got a lovely smooth transition. Just picking up a little bit more of that green woodpecker and dropping it into that damp paint. This is just charging your paint with a different colour. Adding a tiny bit more woodpecker, green woodpecker to that mix there, and just dropping it in using the pattern motion to the outside edge there, and you can see it blur naturally into that mix. I'm adding a puddle here of this is Rosehip with a tiny bit of green Partridge and a little bit of prickly Pear. If you've got this set, you'll know what I mean. And adding a tiny bit of that mix to, this is the watered down version of Rosehip. If you've got green Partridge and prickly Pear, it's worth noting that when you mix the colours up, they do look very different to when they dry, so don't be alarmed if it doesn't look the same. I've just added a tiny bit of green Partridge, prickly Pear and that orange colour there, and you can see I'm dropping it in. You can use any brown for this if you don't have these paints. You could use something like a burnt umber, burnt sienna mixed together, or even a Van Dyke brown. Any brown colour will do, but because I've got these colours and I really love them, these are what I'm using today. Wet and dry, wet and wet, just dropping in that colour to that wet mix so that we have this kind of mottled effect on the stamen and anther. Again, just dropping it in, and because we're going to build them up really, really slowly. Now, I put the pencil version of the outline at the end of this video, but if you want a digital version that looks like this for completely free, all you need to do is join the free version of my Patreon, which I will link underneath this video. But of course, we have a paid version as well if you want to level up your botanical painting tutorials. So in case that's of interest to you, let's just take a look. Are you an aspiring artist looking to take your skills to the next level? Or perhaps you're looking for fresh inspiration? Then you may want to consider joining our Patreon. Our Patreon tutorials have much more in-depth instructions and are a much slower pace, and depending on the membership level you choose, you can have personalised feedback from me and video calls. Unlike our YouTube tutorials, our Patreon art classes focus on really learning the art of botanical painting, and I will guide you step by step through the technique and skills you will need to learn and improve your botanical art. All of our Patreon tutorials are exclusive to my patrons and you won't find them on YouTube. So why not join up to our Patreon and start creating botanical art you can be truly proud of. So you can leave and join at any time, and we have botanical paintings over there that you won't find here on YouTube. They are exclusive to my patrons. So as you can see here, I'm just adding a mixture of green woodpecker with Partridge just to have a darker value of that green that we applied earlier on. And just putting the green woodpecker in between this element here just to separate those out. So just using my brush to soften those areas together, and we're back to Mirabella and adding a tiny bit on the centre, as you can see me doing here. once again just blending them in and using my number 4 brush to add a little bit of rosehip to the areas that I felt need strengthening up. So I'm mixing a little bit of green partridge, prickly pear and rosehip, and I'm adding some little dots, as you can see here, to form the pattern that we see on the petals. I'm not really following the photograph strictly here, I'm just adding a few here and there where I feel I want to, and I'm just adding a little bit of variation. One of the mixes has a little bit more of the prickly pear colour to add a bit of variation and tone there, and a little bit of the other mix there which has a bit more of the rosehip to give it a bit more of that yellowy tone. I'm also taking that colour around the stamen and anther just to enhance those colours. At this point it's just a case of repeating the process. I'm going to stop talking and let you watch the rest of this video in peace. Remember to stay right until the end so that you can you can pause the video and screenshot the photograph that you see on your screen, which was very kindly provided to us by Chris. So thank you once again. If you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up. I'm going to stop talking and let you watch the rest of this video in peace while listening to some hopefully soothing music. And I'll say thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Stay until the end for the finished painting, which I'll put up as well. Thank you for watching. See you soon.